Welcome back to the Fighting Saints Report. Jack Milewski, Jim Leitner. Our final segment is dealing with Winter Classic jerseys. And the jerseys for both teams in the Winter Classic this year, the Dallas Stars hosting at the Cotton Bowl Stadium against the Nashville Predators. An intriguing Winter Classic matchup just because you certainly wouldn't think of winter hockey outdoors in Dallas. And it's just two teams that are really up and coming in the national spotlight with the sport. The Predators have been there a little bit longer than the Dallas Stars, but when the Stars got Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin and now Alex Radulov and Jim Montgomery at the helm, they've started to jump into the national spotlight as well. So a good way to showcase two teams that have never been in this event before and really don't get as much traction as teams that have been here multiple times, like the Bruins and the Flyers and the Blackhawks, Maple Leafs and the Red Wings as well. But before we get into grading the past Winter Classic jerseys, there's already been an outdoor game this year, the Heritage Classic, the Jets and the Calgary Flames. Real quick, which of those jerseys did you like better?
Boy, that's a tough call. Those Canadian teams do it really well. I think I'm going to give a slight edge to Calgary.
See, I like the Jets. I like the color scheme. Calgary was a good touch on a jersey that they've done a lot of different times. The Jets was a different color scheme, a much darker blue, a much darker red than they usually had. I thought that was pretty cool. And I have to ask the same question, Dallas or Nashville for the Winter Classic jerseys?
I kind of like Dallas. I like Nashville's a little bit better.
See, I think I like Dallas better. I think the color scheme is cool. They have a lighter, more of a Kelly green almost, I think. And then the pants are a mustard brown type. But what I don't necessarily like about Nashville is they'd have Nashville and Predators. It might be a little bit too much lettering up there.
I like the script across the chest, though. I do like that. It's a college feel, and I like that college. Some of those college sweaters are done really well when they have the nice script across them.
Yeah, Michigan State, I think, had one that had Michigan and State a couple years ago. It was a good color scheme. If you haven't seen both of those jerseys, they're neither of them are bad jerseys by any means. Pretty good touches for teams that are getting their first crack at it. But we'll go into our list now. We'll start at 5, go all the way down to 1. And I know, obviously, people that are listening to this probably can't see these jerseys. If you don't remember these jerseys, just pull up your phone, pull up the computer. It's easy to follow along. We'll try to describe them a little bit, but obviously your eyes will do better justice than our words can. But some of them, I think, are memorable enough where they will stand on their own in your memories. So without further ado, I think we should kick it off with number 5, and we'll just give a brief reason why for each one.
Number 5, I'm going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs, 2014, which I believe was at the Big House in Michigan. Mm-hmm. It's a blue sweater with the kind of the old-fashioned maple leaf on it that says Toronto Maple Leafs with white, multiple white stripes down the sleeves. It's just one of those jerseys, and I'm a sucker for the old school ones, the teams that wore maybe in the 50s or the 60s. Mm-hmm. You'll see that in my list. There's a lot of ones that are the exact recreation of what they used to wear. Mm-hmm. So I think once you get it right, you should never change. You should never go to a different jersey. Yeah. But I like this one. This one's probably from the 50s or so. Just a blue sweater with an old-fashioned, stylized maple leaf on the chest, and just a real sharp, traditional look.
All in all, that might have been the coolest Winter Classic, with 2 original 6 teams at the Big House. With the snowstorm and Bozak winning it in a shootout. I think that was, all in all, spectacle-wise, maybe the coolest Winter Classic from all perspectives. My number 5 on the list is the New York Rangers from 2018. It was old school with a new school feel. They had a deeper navy with the Rangers and white lettering diagonal, but the coolest touch I thought was up on the top left. They had their crest that they've been using for a while now as in white with either the assistant or captain lettering in there, or just New York NY if they didn't have that. I thought just a clean look, the best of the Rangers outdoor uniforms for sure.
Would that have been when they played at Citi Field?
Yes,
against
Buffalo
that
Sabres.
Was good. That was a good. All these Winter Classics have been good.
All these Winter Classics have been good. I thought Buffalo's uniforms were really cool that year as well, but the Rangers get the nod for me there. I think it's by far their best outdoor uniform. Again, that classic feel, but also with a little bit of the new age in there. So Rangers in 2018 is my number 5.
My number 4, I'm going to go back to 2009, the Winter Classic that was at Wrigley Field. And I'm not going to go with the Blackhawks. I'm going to go with the Detroit Red Wings. It's a white jersey with a big red stripe across it, an Old English D on the chest.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Fighting Saints jerseys this year, the 10th anniversary jerseys. Just, again, a real nice, sharp, classic look. And, you know, I like the old-fashioned D right across the chest, and just kind of reminds me of the roots of the sport going back to the early days, and I think that's what the Winter Classic is a lot about.
Yeah, that's a good jersey. That was, again, just fun Winter Classic. All the Winter Classics are good. I think just the outdoor hockey is always fun. That was another fun one. Wrigley, a tremendous venue. I'm going to go back to another game that included a lot of snow, and this, I believe, was the first ever Winter Classic in 2008. In Buffalo, Sidney Crosby in a shootout in a lot of snow. The Powder Blues, baby. The Powder Blues for Pittsburgh. Man, that was a nice way to kick off the Winter Classic jerseys. I love them in the NFL with the Chargers. I loved them in the NHL outdoors as well. Mostly because, I mean, outside of that, the Penguins crest in the center is fine. There's not a ton going on with that jersey otherwise. But it's a color that you don't see at all in hockey, and it was done really well. Just unique and a sweet color. And I'm not a huge fan of Penguins jerseys in general, but this was one that they absolutely nailed.
Yeah, you're spot on with the Powder Blues. My number 3, I'm going to go with the Powder Blues of the St. Louis Blues. 2017. And I believe this is a nod back to their inaugural year back in 1967. It's a light blue with a traditional blue note crest on it, but I just love it's a lighter shade of blue, powder blue, and it's kind of a lighter shade of yellow and white. So great piping. But again, I think this is a nod back to their early days in the 1960s. And again, I agree with you. Powder blues on ice are awesome. I don't know why more people don't do it.
Yeah.
Because it really pops, and that's number 3 for me.
The Winnipeg Jets alternates now are Powder Blues,
Those
I believe, and those are
sharp.
sharp. I mean, you're 3 for 3 right there with Powder Blues, NHL.
Yeah.
We need more Powder Blues. I'm going to that 2014 game as well. I'm just picking the other team. I'm picking the Detroit Red Wings for my number 3. Again, just a really classic feel to that whole game. Detroit went with slightly darker red than they usually do, but the best, I think it had Detroit over the Red Wings crest, so it had both Detroit and the Red Wings crest. And all of the striping and the logos were cream colored, and it had such a cool vintage feel. I remember both goaltenders wearing brown pads in that game too. I mean, it was a huge vintage feel to that game, and I really like those. My favorite Red Wings Winter Classic jerseys, and they've been in at least 2, maybe even 3 now. But the Red Wings in 2014, I think, really got it right, and I think with the goaltenders might have looked the best in that game with those brown pads as well. But that was a lot of fun and a really good vintage feel to that jersey.
I'm going back to I agree with you on the 2008 Winter Classic, which was the inaugural one. Mm-hmm. At number 2, I go with the Buffalo Sabres, the jerseys they had. And again, this is the jersey that they wore when they first came in the NHL. It's exact replica of what they wore when they first came into the NHL in the early 70s. 2008, again, that was a great Winter Classic. That's really what got the ball rolling.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was the game where it was snowing, and I think it was Rich Stadium then, now in Buffalo. But it's the snow was falling. It was just NHL couldn't have drawn it up any more perfect to steal away from college football on New Year's Day.
Yep.
They absolutely nailed it, and the jerseys from that game were I think one of my favorites all time in the NHL is those jerseys from that Winter Classic because they were Buffaloes from the early days, and that's my number 2.
Yeah, and of course that game. I mean, the atmosphere alone, but then Wonder Boy Crosby scoring the shootout winner. I mean, everything about that just kicked it off perfectly for the NHL. Some of that you can't plan. Most of it you can't plan, really, with the weather and who scores that game winner. But they nailed it in everything leading up to it, and then they got really lucky with a lot of the stuff that made it even better. My number 2, I'm going to 2015, and I feel like these jerseys are lost in the shuffle because they're not a look that you've ever really seen before. But the Washington Capitals jerseys of 2015 have always stuck with me. Almost a burgundy type red. You have a big navy W in the center with 3 stars over each point on the W, and then Capitals written right through that big W, and then the navy pants. A vintage feel. That was a good game. I think Eric Fair scored the winner there late, if I'm remembering correctly. I think he scored 2 goals in the first Winter Classic in 2011 for the Capitals, and I think he might have been the hero in that game as well. It was a late goal regardless. But those sweaters, I think, are lost in the shuffle for how clean they are. I like them a lot better than the other Winter Classic jerseys that the Capitals wore, which is what they've gone with the Capitals with the stick underneath and the stars.
The original jerseys.
Those are good, but these I think were a lot better, a lot more of a vintage feel, which is what I always look for in the Winter Classic. If you're not going to bring back an old jersey, make it look like something that would have been created 50, 60 years ago. I think the Capitals did a really good job with this one.
My number 1, you kind of stole my thunder a little earlier with I'm staying in 2008, again, the original, the first Winter Classic, but the Penguins, they're powder blues. If you probably sensing a little theme here with the powder blues, but those were really, really sharp. Powder blue with a dark navy blue and white stripes on them. I thought that was really sharp. And then you have the traditional Penguins logo in the center. Mm-hmm. It just really popped. And I do think that these do kind of remind me of the Jets' third jersey. Yeah. Real similar in that regard, but again, when you get that powder blue and you get it to, especially on ice, I just think it looks really sharp. And again, I'm a sucker for that first Winter Classic because that's the one that really got me hooked on that and got me to watch that instead of college football on New Year's Day, New Year's Day was college football forever for me, and then that's really what changed it. Now it's hard for me to watch college football on New Year's Day because, well, I do, but I have to plan it around the Winter Classic first.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised none of the Blackhawks made it on the list for you.
You know, none of the Blackhawks made it on my list because my thing is the jerseys they have, their regular jerseys that they wear every day, are as good as it can get. Mm-hmm. How do you top that? I mean, that's my problem. How do you top, one of the best jerseys in hockey as it is? And I think some of the ones that they've had have been maybe a little bit too busy for my taste. And it's hard when you have that best jersey as it is to make it better.
Yeah, it is tough to top that Blackhawks jersey, but if they didn't top it, they came pretty close in 2009. I love the 2009 Blackhawks jerseys. Even before these jerseys, they're a nod to the 40s, 50s, and 60s, but even before these jerseys came out, I remember playing NHL on Xbox, and these were the jerseys that I would always pick from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I loved them. You've got the Blackhawks, the head in the middle, but with the circular crest with Chicago Blackhawks around there. And then you have a big tan line with red on the top and bottom. The numbers are clear and crisp with black with that cream-colored outline. I'm a big sucker for the cream color to make it look like a throwback jersey in all these Winter Classics. I love these Blackhawks jerseys. Blackhawks against the Red Wings was a great way to follow up that first Winter Classic with Buffalo and Pittsburgh. And I thought they nailed these jerseys. They looked really good outdoors. They're my favorite for the Blackhawks in the winter. They're outdoor games as well, and they've been in quite a few. So I got to give the nod to the 2009 Blackhawks for number 1.
The one thing about that is, and you're right about that, you see a lot of teams, it's about trends and everything. You see a lot of teams adapt a similar style to that one that you're mentioning, the 2009 Blackhawks Winter Classic, and that's like a style that you'd never seen in hockey before. And then all of a sudden you see junior teams having the similar pattern, or they'd have home and aways that are really patterned closely after that. So that's a mark of a really true exceptional jersey, is when people see that and, hey, let's incorporate our colors or our color scheme into that style or that pattern. So that is a classic one for sure.
2009. Interesting that we had a lot of the same years. I think 2008 we covered both jerseys. 2014 we covered both jerseys, and 2009 we covered both jerseys for the teams as well. So very interesting, and I'm excited to see what the jerseys look like. They always look good when they release them, but they always look better when they're out on the ice on January 1st. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like in the Cotton Bowl.
Did you see the San Diego Padres are going back to brown?
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
Brown's never a good color in jerseys.
I don't know. The brown and the brown and the gold, I kind of go. It's not as putrid as it was in the early 70s when it was all yellow and all brown. And I think if they're going to do brown and yellow, I think they got it right with the Padres this time. So.
My take on it is they might want to hope it's the 70s with black and white TVs with those brown uniforms. I don't know how they look in HD. But that's all the time we have for the Fighting Saints Report. I'm Jack Milewski for Jim Leitner signing off. We'll talk to you next weekend, and the Fighting Saints, again, 2 big games this weekend, Military Appreciation Weekend, and their final 2 home games before the first weekend in December.